Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here to talk about Volume 1 of the complete orchestral works of Hans Roth. Now, who was Hans Roth? He was a cult composer from Vienna who lived from 1858 to 1884. He was only 25 when he died. He went insane in the most spectacular way. He was on a train. He held a passenger at gunpoint, claiming that Brahms had packed the train with explosives and was out to kill everybody because Brahms had told him that he had no talent whatsoever and should give up music completely. Other luminaries of the time, or soon-to-be luminaries such as Mahler, thought he was extremely talented and was a definite musical might-have-been. Of course, Mahler really thought that because he was judging Roth on the basis that Roth anticipated himself, and nothing appeals to any artist more than the implied flattery of somebody who validates or shares your view of things. And what Mahler was speaking of was principally the scherzo of Roth's First Symphony, which we will talk about in Volume 2 of this series. But right now we're dealing with Volume 1. So, was Roth a might-have-been great composer? No. Not even close. I mean, we don't know. He could have been, if he lived, but he didn't. And so on the basis of what we have, he was sort of an almost maybe kind of composer, I think. Now, he does have his following because there are in the classical music world reams of people who have boundless affection for A, people who die young and tragically, and B, leave lots of incomplete music that shows some resemblance to existing music, which is fabulous, and C, people who think that it's fun to make ridiculously exaggerated claims and belong to a little club of people making similarly ridiculously exaggerated claims about people who did not live to fulfill their promise. And his life story is terribly sad. But we have to go on the basis of what we hear, of what the music sounds like. So let's talk about that and play some samples, because this marvelous disc, it's very well done, well recorded, well played, excellently produced, really a first-class production all the way. It's on the Capriccio label, so I can use clips. And it features the Gürzenich Orchestra Köln, conducted by Christopher Ward. Very, very well. Now, first, what do we have? We have two Shakespearean prelude things. The Hamlet Overture, which is incomplete, which is completed by somebody else, and which is incredibly boring and formless and totally un-Hamlet-like. And the Overture or Prelude to Julius Caesar, which apparently is complete but doesn't matter because it's completely un-Julius Caesar-like. Now, we have every right as listeners to ask ourselves, aside from the incredibly ambitious titles, does the music live up to its Shakespearean promise? The answer is no. The music is completely, entirely, utterly forgettable in every possible way. And if you did not know that Hans Roth, the legendary, dead, crazy Hans Roth, had written it, would you care that anyone had written it? The answer is no. Then we have, two more bitlets. There's a suite in E major from 1878 that consists of two movements, a prelude and then a slowish movement. It's like 8 minutes long. And then there's a piece of a suite in B flat major for orchestra that has only two movements, a scherzo and a finale. The first two movements are missing. It's about 6 minutes long. It's also, these are fragments. And if they're not fragments, they sound like fragments. They are completely forgettable. And then there's the orchestral prelude in E major from 1876, which is 3 minutes and 57 seconds of total nothingness. So far, the promise of Roth has not been fulfilled. However persuasive the performance is and committed the playing is and excellent the engineering, that's true. But then we come to the pièce de résistance of this Volume 1. We have the Pastoral Prelude, the Pastoralis Vorspiel in F major from 1880. This was the last thing he wrote before insanity set in, and it's a complete work. It's 14 minutes long, and it shows us, I think, where the promise lay and what the sort of hope for the future. Is that future realized in this work? No, it isn't. But it's there. You can detect it. Now, what is the pastoral prelude? Well, first of all, it's in F major, which is the pastoral key ever since Beethoven's Pastoral Symphony, which is in F major, and Brahms's Third is in F major, and there's a bunch of Dvorak's in F major, because F major is a pastoral key, a lovely bucolic pastoral key, particularly Dvorak's Fifth, the gorgeous pastoral Fifth Symphony. So there's a big history of pastoral pieces in F major to which this belongs. And so if you like that tradition, this is definitely a work you might want to hear. What does it do? Well, the first 9 minutes consist of very atmospheric, drifty, pastoral, gentle moodiness. There is the obligatory bird song interlude because it's pastoral. So we've got to have little birdies, and here they are, the birdies. And Roth is as good as anyone else making his woodwind section go cheepity cheepity cheep, wugga wugga wugga, cuckoo cuckoo. That's what it does, and it's quite effective. But the harmony is what's interesting. The harmony underlying this stuff is quite interesting. It's based sort of on late Wagner sort of thing, and it starts to sound almost like Delius. There's something in there. There's some atmosphere, there's a moodiness that's really quite affecting. The only problem is that it goes on for about 7 minutes longer than it needs to when we get to 9 minutes. But then, oh dear, what can I tell you? The fugue happens. Yes, he writes a fugue. Why does he write a fugue? What is the point of the fugue? I have to tell you a story. About this fugue. When I was a high school student, I worked as a short order cook. That was my job. I spent a lot of years, actually, in high school and college as a short order cook, and I was a damn good one. I really was. But I used to run the restaurant on Sunday nights because they were quiet nights, and most of the serious guys, like the grill master or those people who did the steaks and chops and this, they took the night off, and they left the basic line, the cooking line, to me, because I would work on Sunday nights, and I thought it was a great quiet time to get in some hours, and it wasn't a school night. You know the deal, right? You've all had jobs while you were in school, and I loved cooking. I still do. I enjoyed it. But every Sunday night, just for fun, I would put something absolutely appalling on the menu, some sort of mixture of incompatible ingredients. And my favorite special that they actually let me do, I don't know how I got away with this, but I did, was called the Liver Mint Surprise. The Liver Mint Surprise consisted of delicious fried liver and onions grilled to juicy perfection, topped with melted York peppermint patties that I would simmer down in the microwave and then drizzle on top of the liver and onions. Now, I didn't think anybody would order this. I really didn't. You'd have to be crazy to order it. It was revolting, absolutely revolting. But occasionally people did, and I was fascinated. I would always sort of surreptitiously walk out and just see who it was who ordered the Liver Mint Surprise, because I could not believe anybody would order the Liver Mint Surprise. Well, the Pastoral Prelude by Hans Roth, to get back to the topic, is the musical equivalent of the Liver Mint Surprise, because after 9 minutes of dreamy pastoral noodling, this is what we hear. Why? Why, Mr. Roth? What is the point of that fugue? What is it doing there? Why ruin all of that atmosphere and mood? Surely you could have come up with something that suggested some kind of movement, but that wasn't a dry, academic, not terribly interesting fugue. Gosh. So then, okay, so the fugue is going. That's the drizzle of mint on the liver. So the mint is dripping on the liver, and it drips on and on and on. And then finally, it comes to a gigantic peroration that shows that Mr. Roth had no sense of timing whatsoever, at least not yet. Maybe he would have acquired it in time. The same problem, by the way, afflicts his his completed symphony, which dates from about this same period, 1878 to 1880. He just didn't know how to end anything, because just as the fugue reaches its climax, the percussion comes slamming in, and here are the interminable, ridiculous, bombastic final bars. You're drooling the whole York peppermint patty, the whole bag of them, onto the liver at this point. Here it is, the ending. God, make it stop. Please make it stop. Oh my gosh, it's just terrible. It doesn't know how to end. He just thinks by having more cymbals and bass drum and triangle and playing louder and louder and over, it's better. It's more emphatic. It's more satisfying. It's not. It's really not. Does this mean it's a bad piece? Well, yeah, actually, it probably is a bad piece. It has a lot of promise in the opening sections. And that, by the way, is the entire musical value of Volume 1, because everything else on it is basically junk. And you know, this Pastoral Prelude shows that the guy had talent. He had talent, but he didn't live to realize it. And then the question becomes this one. Why would you want to listen to an entire disc of unrealized talent when there are billions and billions of discs out there of fully realized talent by other people? It's up to you to make that decision. You have to answer the question for yourself. I would not listen to those who claim that Roth was important or significant or meaningful or in any way necessary. He is an interesting footnote in a path that led eventually to the masterpieces of Mahler and possibly Strauss and other composers in that school. But there were many other composers in that school, and they lived to write magnificent pieces. So, you know, how do I feel about this? Well, I guess you know. It's completely unnecessary, but nice. Nice for what it is, and if you're a collector of music of this period, that whole fin de siècle Viennese school, you probably want to hear this. You want to hear it at least once, at least for the Pastoral Prelude. The rest of this stuff you can forget about. Maybe Volume 2, which contains the symphony, which has already been recorded at least 7 or 8 times, will have more that will entice us. And I'll be able to play some samples of that too. But for my money, I don't think this is a terribly necessary disc, even though it's good, even though it's well done. And that's my opinion of Hans Roth. I do not subscribe to the theory that everything that was left to us, and which musicologists get their grubby little fingers on and try and push on us because they can and make exaggerated claims for it. No, doesn't wash. Sorry, folks. Keep on listening, if not to rot, then to others. Thanks a lot. Take care.